Don't you dare touch that letter. The words sliced through the tension, bouncing off the cracked linoleum and bare overhead bulbs. You said this was all worthless, now you're interested. A hand slammed down onto the old trunk, dust motes scattering in the lamp light. Back off, you don't know what's at stake. She leaned closer, refusing to yield as voices rose from all corners of the crowded courthouse archive. You want the whole world to hear what you did. Her hand hovered over the papers, knuckles white. Last warning, step aside. Every muscle in her body waited, one breath, one twitch from collapse or eruption. Try me and see what happens. That moment, with the truth between them and everyone watching, held everything she'd fought to reach. But before the fire erupted, before reputations shattered and justice took a bite, she was someone else, lost and small, stepping into a future no one expected. For that, we have to turn back to the rainy day in Westchester County and the promise nobody believed she'd keep. The first thing Sophia did that morning was count the bills in her wallet 6 times, $43.28, total, with nothing waiting in the bank. She eyed the bruised, overstuffed duffel bag on the passenger seat and then glanced in the rearview mirror at Annie's knees drawn to her chest, next to a battered doll stitched together so many times it could have been a family heirloom. Outside, a cold drizzle streaked the windshield, blurring Stop and Shop, the skeletal sycamores, and the faded sign that still read Yonkers, Gateway to Westchester, as if the world was welcoming them to a palace instead of exiling them to the edge. Mom, why does the rain always sound sad? Annie pressed her nose to the glass, voice muffled but clear in the tight space of the Subaru. Sophia offered her the easiest answer she could. Maybe it's just tired, sweet pea, even clouds need a break. But do clouds ever go bankrupt? Annie tried a thin smile, her mind always reaching for the serious words adults used and never quite got right. Sophia blinked, then squeezed her daughter's knee, feeling Annie shiver through jean and skin. No, Annie, but sometimes people do, and when they do, it means we get to start smaller, that's all. Silence held for a few moments, then Annie piped again, curiosity blooming. Is this the dump Uncle Jerry said has giant spiders? Sophia adjusted her mirror, bracing as much for her daughter's anxiety as for what waited on the other side of town. If there are spiders, I promise you I'll talk to them. They owe me rent after all these years. A week ago, Sophia hadn't imagined any of this. That was before their father's funeral, before the swift, well-practiced maneuver that left her and Annie standing in the drizzle with nothing but a tarnished cottage to their name. Aunt Doreen and Uncle Jerry, her father's younger sister and her gambling-stricken, always scheming husband, had dominated the lawyer's office like hungry spirits. Sophia remembered the smirk Doreen wore as she recited, per the will, the main residence and accompanying investment assets pass to the next of kin, meaning myself and my dear husband. Every sentence cost Sophia a fingernail. Uncle Jerry hadn't wasted time either. Sophia, you take that old shack on Grafton Hill. Good luck getting the smell out. Then under his breath, as if Annie couldn't hear, even the raccoons don't want it, kid. Now the rain battered the windshield as they crept up a one-way lane, ancient tulip poplars hunching in the gray. The dump rose into view, a wide 4-bedroom with boarded windows, its turquoise paint peeled by decades of neglect. Power lines drooped toward the ground, and the county's neon orange condemnation notice screamed from the front steps. Annie's eyes went wide as coins. Are we really living here? Sophia hesitated, then ran a thumb over the dashboard for luck, only if the spiders sign a lease. As the clouds thickened overhead, Aunt Doreen's text pinged on Sophia's phone. Don't forget, Sophia, 30 days or the county bulldozes. Maybe let the kid pick the paint before it falls down. Another message loaded, Jerry grinning between lines. How about you start with a mop? Ha, try not to catch anything in there. Sophia pressed her lips together, holding Annie's hand as they stepped onto the porch. She picked at a scrap of faded insulation on the welcome mat and hesitated. Beneath, she glimpsed the tip of a metal key, not one she recognized. Small, old, heavy in her palm. Her grip tightened, hook one. If finding a strange, forgotten key on her own porch was the universe's way of keeping her in the game, she'd take it. If you've ever watched your last chance slip through greedy hands and refused to give in, keep listening. This is how you take everything back, one secret at a time. They left the county's condemnation notice to flap in the wind and pushed deeper inside. Sophia's battered duffel left a smear of mud across the ruined linoleum as she surveyed what her aunt and uncle had dismissed. A worthless place, sure, but also the one thing left that no one could take. As Sophia crossed the threshold, water pooled at her feet, dripping from somewhere unseen. "Okay, Annie, let's hunt spiders and maybe find a little hope." Annie squeezed Sophia's hand, her smile braver than the rain. "I think we're gonna win, Mom, maybe." By the dim light seeping in through splintered blinds, Sophia and Annie set off, ready or not. The storm outside only sharpened her resolve, each drop a drumbeat of what she still had left to lose. The drive up Grafton Hill was less a journey, more a plodding test. The Subaru's engine coughed twice before wheezing to a stop near the eroded curb. Sophia zipped her parka and hunched her shoulders against the wind, scanning the half-wild lawn, gutters choked with leaves and warped steps. Annie, ever practical, grabbed her backpack and a flashlight from the duffel, her boots thumping behind Sophia's. As the pair slipped inside, the musty tang of rot and wet plaster greeted them. Sophia flicked the useless light switch anyway, an old habit that made Annie's lip tremble. "No power, huh?" Annie's voice was flat, caught between fear and grown-up resignation. "Not yet, but it means nobody can snoop around at night, right?" Sophia lifted her chin, offering Annie the flashlight. "You're on bug patrol." "I'm on it." Annie slipped the light into the crook of her arm, more protector than child. At every step, Sophia strained to remember last Christmas in the house. The way garlands warmed the kitchen, her father humming off-key, Aunt Doreen's tight smiles, Jerry pouring from a flask at the tree lot and swearing he'd build a future for everyone. Now every memory felt gutted, just like these rooms. Hook 2 came moments after. In the living room, a trail of disturbed dust wound across faded cherrywood floorboards. There, against the ice-cold fireplace, a square of fresh insulation. Someone had tried and failed to conceal a crawlspace opening in the attic. Annie nudged her. "Someone else was up there, Mom." Sophia nodded, heart pounding. "Then we'll see what they left behind." Outside, dusk pressed up against boarded glass. Inside, buried secrets waited. She kept her steps light, every nerve taut as a violin string. In her world now, the only direction was forward. The creak of attic stairs and sting of insulation dust meant progress. Sophia batted cobwebs aside, beckoning Annie to stay below. The air thickened with age and neglect. Hands trembling, she brushed away handfuls of pink insulation and groped for whatever was hidden. Her fingers caught the curve of old wood, not a beam. A trunk wedged between two joists, barely visible unless you expected it. Sophia's breath hitched. She yanked, muscles straining, until the trunk tumbled down, spraying dust over her jeans and boots. She wiped her face, hacking through the lock with the mysterious key found on the porch. The trunk popped open with a reluctant sigh. Inside, rows of yellowed folders, a stack of envelopes bearing her grandmother's looping script, and wedged behind them a small fireproof safe crusted with tape and paint. Beneath everything else, a letter, sealed in plastic, with Sophia in handwriting she'd last seen on a birthday card when Annie was 3. Annie's head poked through the attic hatch. "Is it spiders?" Sophia grinned, swallowing a sob. "Better family secrets." Hook 3, she peeled open the letter. Her mother's scent of lavender and cigarette smoke seemed to rise off the page as she read. "My dear Sophia," it began, "if you're reading this, you already know too much has been lost." The words jerked her back, years tumbling over each other. "Your father trusted people he considered family. He never understood how deep the hunger for easy money runs. If your Aunt Doreen or Jerry try to scare you away, remember this. Your great-grandmother survived the crash and built a future nobody imagined. She left something more than memories in this house. Trust yourself. You're the only one who ever saw truth in ugliness." Sophia blinked, hands shaking as Annie climbed into the attic beside her. Annie, ever observant, grabbed a file marked 1943 property receipts and waved it. Is this worth anything? Sophia skimmed the top page, a photograph of her great-grandmother in front of the cottage, smiling, holding a metal bar. Handwritten across the bottom, First Gold, June 1944. She shuffled deeper, finding faded deeds, stock certificates, and old tax ledgers documenting the family's journey from dust to grit to cautious hope. Hook 4, another envelope new and unsealed. Inside was a typed note with county seal. Notice of demolition. The property at 47 Grafton Hill, Yonkers, NY, will be removed in 30 days unless current ownership can demonstrate significant restoration or historical value. Noncompliance may result in fines. Sophia inhaled sharply. They all knew this was at risk, that's why they gave it away. Annie tugged her sleeve. Are we really going to lose it? Sophia squeezed her hand, voice soft but clear, not without a fight. The attic shrank in the deepening dusk, but inside her, something braced for daylight. Sophia descended from the attic, the latch clicking behind her. She slid the fireproof safe and trunk into the battered duffel, ignoring her own exhaustion. They hurried through the empty house, boots echoing off the hollow rooms. Before they'd taken 10 steps outside, a red Prius tore up the drive, Aunt Doreen's signature move, shrill horn echoing over the rain. Uncle Jerry emerged, crumpled windbreaker stretched tight, eyes darting. Sophia trying to steal what's left. There's nothing for you here, Jerry sneered. Doreen followed, patent leather shoes slapping mud, voice honeyed but sharp. We only let you have this place to spare you embarrassment. Jerry and I have real plans. Sophia squared her shoulders, holding Annie's trembling hand. Looks like you overlooked something. Doreen's eyes narrowed. Whatever trash you find, it's still condemned. Jerry growled, just walk away, Sophia, or someone'll do it for you. Another escalation, Hook 5. Annie silently grabbed the safe from Sophia's bag, clutching it to her chest. Is this what they're after, Mom? Sophia nodded slightly, then raised her gaze to Doreen and Jerry. You should go, I'm not asking again. Jerry just glared at her, but it was Doreen who hissed through her teeth, 30 days, Sophia. The law's on our side. Try anything, see what it gets you. As they retreated to their car, the rain slackened, but a chill hung in the yard, a warning more than a promise. Inside, Sophia found her old phone, battery barely clinging to life, and dialed the number written in a margin of her grandmother's letter. If you're ever truly stuck, call Ruth Morin at the Record. She's the only one we trust with the truth. Nobody picked up the first time. On the third ring, a voice answered, brisk and sandpaper rough. This is Ruth Morin, who's calling? Sophia answered in a rush. My name's Sophia. I inherited 47 Grafton Hill. I found something important. I think it's connected to your columns about local corruption. For a beat silence, then Ruth pressed. You got a will, deeds, or just a story, hun? My grandmother's letter says she left something big, gold, money, old property receipts. And the county's about to bulldoze it in 30 days. My relatives laughed in my face. A low sound, an admission of skepticism, or the first spark of interest came down the line. Meet me in my office, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Bring everything. Record office, 2nd floor, South Broadway. Sophia cradled the phone, blinking at Annie, whose arms were clenching the safe as if it might fly away. We have to fight fast. We're not alone anymore. The world tilted. With every new threat, the roots of her grandmother's warning pushed deeper. The next morning, dawn was little more than fog over the river. Sophia parked outside a soot-blackened brick office, Annie by her side, safe wedged between them. Ruth's office was a chaos of notepads, dog-eared legal journals, coffee cups half-filled or empty. Ruth herself was 50-ish, hunched in an armless chair, wearing a battered Yankees Suck hoodie. Let's see your evidence, Ruth barked, setting her pen aside. Sophia opened the trunk and spread out the faded documents, deeds, tax records, photographs, gold bar receipts, letter from her grandmother. Damn, Ruth squinted at the topmost deed. You know what these are worth. Not yet, Sophia replied, voice small but steady. Ruth paged through 3 files, then whistled. Kid, your family bought out half of Yonkers before World War II. These stock certificates, if they're active, you're talking millions. Annie edged forward. Is that enough for a new roof? Ruth's eyes softened. If this holds up enough to buy 5 houses with gold toilets, but you're on a deadline. Ruth's fingers danced across her phone, snapping photos, organizing evidence. Counties set for demolition in 28 days, Ruth continued, accent staccato. You gotta get an injunction filed by next Wednesday or it's lost. You'll need notarized proof these were hidden from the estate. Sophia's mind mapped a new plan. If Aunt Doreen hid all this, that's fraud, right? Probate fraud may be criminal, jury'll eat it up if you have every receipt and can stay above water for a week. Ruth winked. Tell your daughter not to worry, I've got a soft spot for stubborn women with nothing to lose. Hook 6, Annie in a burst of unexpected boldness piped, so my aunt and uncle broke the law. Darlin', if they didn't, I'll eat this Rolodex. Ruth nodded at her desk, then softened. But remember, proving it counts more than finding it. You up for that? Sophia, gripping Annie's hand, lied for the first time that day. We're ready. But as the old newspaperwoman signed off, Sophia wondered how much more Annie could take. 2 days later, trouble struck. Sophia woke to heavy footsteps on the porch. Annie stared from the window as Jerry's SUV pulled up, Doreen at his side. They barged in with the landlord's old key. You found something, didn't you? Jerry demanded, eyes wild, mouth set. Doreen flanked him, voice syrup and gravel. Give back anything you took from the attic and we'll let you out easy. Sophia planted herself in the doorway. You gave us the house, we're fixing it. Jerry's hand snaked out, grabbing for the safe. That's not for you, you're too soft, Sophie. Annie whimpered, but Sophia held firm. I know about the demolition and the gold. What did you do with the will, Doreen? The aunt's lips curled. You have no idea how deep you're in. Back off or you're both gone before sunset. Annie clung to Sophia's side. Don't let them win, Mom. At least let my kid go upstairs. Sophia snapped, more animal than human. Doreen sneered. Your father was weak, you're weaker. But Sophia only gripped the safe tighter, her flaw sharpening to defiance. Only thing weak here is your conscience. Jerry made a final lunge. Sophia yanked the safe away, pinning it to her side, eyes blazing. Get out, both of you. This is over when I say so. Doreen hissed, but Jerry deflated, slamming the front door behind him. Hook 7, behind her fear, Sophia knew. The truth was big enough to destroy them. With allies and evidence stacking up, Sophia called Ruth again, voice shaking but sure. This time, Ruth insisted they meet after hours at the record. The day of the big confrontation came with a sickly yellow sky and county officials circling outside with cameras and checklists. Sophia, Ruth, and Annie marched into the courthouse records room, at the end of Yonkers' oldest hall, under the sharp glare of a dying chandelier. Inside, Doreen and Jerry were already posturing in pressed suits, flanked by a nervous lawyer. Boxes of paperwork encased the table, and the judge's assistant looked ready to faint at the tension. Sophia laid her grandmother's letter, trunk contents, and safe on the table. The judge's assistant wrinkled her nose at the musty folders. Are you presenting these as evidence? Ruth's voice sliced the air. Every page, every signature, we've got the paper trail. Doreen tried for sympathy. This is a family misunderstanding. Sophia's confused. Jerry, sweating, tried bravado. We gave her that house out of pity. Sophia, emotion ghosting her tone, faced Doreen and Jerry. Did you know about the safe or just hope nobody would find it? Doreen bristled. We've done nothing wrong. Ruth cut in. Better read page 6, Your Honor. The judge turned pages murmuring. The courtroom air snapped tight. Then, in a staccato beat, a bailiff entered, bearing a letter from the county clerk. Confirmation that the property was hours away from being condemned, but also notice that newly discovered deeds and lineage overrode all previous distribution, pending review. Doreen barreled forward. "Let me see that letter." "Don't you dare touch that letter," Sophia's words echoed, just as before, but this time with all eyes watching. "You said this was all worthless. Now you're interested," Ruth parried, flat as a hammer. Jerry's hand struck the trunk, panic now in his eyes. "Back off, you don't know what's at stake." Sophia came nose to nose with Doreen, unwilling to move. "You want the whole world to hear what you did." Bystanders shifted, a county official snapping a photo. Annie gripped Sophia's hip, gaze laser-sharp. "Your last warning. Step aside," Sophia bit out, voice barely above a growl. Doreen spat. "Try me and see what happens." For a breath, the room balanced on a knife's edge, tension thick and hot as a summer attic. Then the judge's gavel cut the air. "Enough, I've read every page. This safe, the letters, these receipts, they confirm a concealed trust fund and fraudulent will submission. Distribution is reversed. Damages and penalties pending review." Instantly, Ruth raised her phone. "Smile for the story, Doreen, your big win just made the news." Jerry slumped, the defeat visible from his sloped shoulders to the quivering lines around his mouth. Doreen, pale, silent, and alone, could only glare. Hook 8, a journalist in the gallery, whispered, "This'll run in every state outlet before sundown." As the gallery burst into noise, Annie grabbed Sophia's hand, tears on her cheeks. The judge continued, voice unyielding. "The court finds for Sophia and her daughter. You too," he pointed at Doreen and Jerry, "are liable for all interest and punitive damages." With that, the story that had begun in the rain crashed past its final gate. The aftermath was quicker, harsher than Sophia ever dreamed. In the weeks following, Doreen and Jerry's fortunes fell apart, their investments siphoned to cover punitive damages. They became pariahs in their community, business partners pulled out, neighbors whispered behind closed blinds. Court orders stripped their accounts. The family's so-called real plans collapsed into dust. The headline on every major local paper blared. "Fraud exposed at-grafton Hill, hidden millions redistributed." But Sophia did more than just reclaim what was stolen. Instead of blind vengeance, she used her small windfall to repair the battered four-bedroom house, restoring every warped floorboard, every faded shutter. Piece by piece, with Annie painting the mailbox red, they made it gleam again. True to her grandmother's memory, Sophia reached out to Ruth at the Record, then to local nonprofits and shelters, offering rooms to single mothers like herself. At below-market rent, no intrusive questions, just keys and a chance. Neighbors noticed. So did city officials, who quietly rescinded the demolition order and wrote the first supportive editorial in decades. Ruth's final column began, "Sometimes the people who get left behind are exactly who we need to survive. Thank you, Sophia." And Annie, once the scared protector, led new tenants by the hand, proud and unflinching. Sophia now stood where every branch of her broken family tree converged, in the only place that had ever truly belonged to her. It takes grit to build something no one else can see, especially when those closest try to bury the foundation. When you're told all that's left to you is a dump, look again. Sometimes the heart of a family is what survives the fire. If you've ever watched the doors to your future slam shut and still found a light to guide you inside, maybe this story is yours too. The rain finally broke for good on Grafton Hill, and Sophia, landlord, mother, survivor, held the keys to every room she'd once been told to abandon. Sophia sat alone on the battered porch swing, dusk softening the lines of the newly painted house as twilight deepened around her. In the distance, the river glimmered silver. For the first time in months, there was space for a breath that didn't hitch in the chest, a pause without panic ready to clamp down. She pressed her hand to the old wood, feeling history beneath her palm. the layers of paint scraped away and reapplied, each new color a fresh start. Inside, laughter lifted through an open window. Annie was showing Layla, the first tenant in room 2, how to coax hot cocoa from the ancient stove without burning her fingers. If you listen, it whistles right before it boils over. Annie was instructing, her confidence blooming in the gentle company of someone new. Sophia closed her eyes, letting the simple music of their voices wash over her. This was what she'd fought for. Not just survival or justice done in a courthouse thick with old paper and older lies, but moments like this, home as promise, not burden. Keys jingled at her hip. From somewhere down the block, headlights swept over the grass, then flicked out. For a heartbeat, she tensed, expecting, out of old habit, another threat, another knock demanding what wasn't due. Instead, boots thudded up the walk and Ruth Morin's gravel voice sliced the cool air. You always sit in the dark, or is that how you keep on top of things? Sophia grinned and scooted over, patting the swing beside her. Comes from learning to listen. Old houses have opinions. Ruth lowered herself, cracking her knuckles. Got the Record's evening edition. She fished a newspaper from her bag and handed it over, headlines bold. Civic hero SAVSGRAFTON Hill opens doors to new STARTS. Quiet stretched, comfortable and unhurried. Ruth squinted through the wavy glass of the living room window. How's Annie holding up? Sophia watched her daughter's silhouette, a flash of a smile, hands waving, the delighted cackle of someone who finally believed the world might be good to her. She's different, Sophia said softly. I told her we might stay here a long time. She said we should get goats. Ruth snorted. That's one way to keep the grass down. You gonna, what is it? Start small again anytime soon. Sophia shook her head. I'm starting big with the truth this time. The words felt solid, settled. People call asking to buy the house, developers, real estate folks. I keep telling them the answer's no. Ruth nodded, pride flickering beneath her sardonic shell. Never met anyone who turned down $1 million check with so much grace. I don't need their money. The first winter was the hardest. Now every hand I shake at the door, every key I pass on, that's the reward. Silence again, but sweeter now. Dusk thickening with the sense of early summer, the hum of crickets weaving beneath laughter. Finally, Ruth heaved herself up, brushing dust from her knees. Your grandmother'd be proud, Sophia, raising hell, changing rules. I'll remember that. Sophia met her eyes, voice gentle. Thank you for not giving up on me when the story got messy. Ruth waved off the thanks. Still need people to buy papers, but there aren't many like you left either. Keep the porch light on. Ruth's cane tapped down the steps, her figure dissolving into shadow as she walked toward her car. Sophia watched until the taillights faded. Then slowly she went inside. The kitchen was alive with clatter and cocoa, the latest tenant unpacking a battered suitcase, Annie clinging to her like kin. Layla looked up as Sophia entered, her nerves easing into a shy smile. Do you need anything? Sophia asked, her tone so genuine that Layla bit her lip and nearly teared up. I'm okay, really. Layla hesitated then. Thank you, nobody's ever given me a second chance before. Sophia pushed the mug toward her. That's all right, that's all any of us have. After the tenants drifted upstairs and Annie yawned wide, Sophia knelt to tuck her into bed. Moonlight painted fractals on the walls. Annie hugged her old stitched doll, almost too small now for the crook of her arm. Mom, Annie whispered, do you miss Grandpa? Sophia's breath caught, old grief hitting soft. Every day, honey, but sometimes I think this house remembers him for us. Me too, Annie nestled closer, the comfort of place and person finally enough. Downstairs, Sophia spent a quiet half-hour filing deeds and scanned documents. Every page now properly recorded, Anna's signature on county books, the safe's contents locked in a deposit box at the credit union. She was solvent in a way her ancestors might envy, but richer for knowing exactly who she was and who she never wanted to become. At midnight, she wandered through the house in her socks, fingers sliding along the banister worn to satin by generations of hands. She paused by a window and lifted the cracked sash, letting the warm June air carry in the far-off sound of laughter spilling from porches all over Grafton Hill. She promised never to forget what it cost to start again. Every room she passed was both lesson and victory, each shadow a ghost finally at rest. Gone was the old sense of exile. This was home, remade by grit, heartache, and so many small, stubborn kindnesses. Soon there'd be new problems, pipes to fix, bills to juggle, partnerships to broker. But for tonight, Sophia savored the quiet, the surety of walls that would hold, a child safe and dreaming upstairs, allies closer than blood. Tomorrow, neighbors would come bearing welcome baskets, a councilwoman would call with questions about affordable housing, Annie would plead for goats and rabbits and maybe a treehouse. But right now, Sophia simply stood in the gentle hush, certain at last that her story, fierce and humble, belonged to her and everyone she would choose to shelter next. And above it all, Grafton Hill breathed contentment, its rain-washed streets holding the golden promise that sometimes the hardest won home is also the most unbreakable. On the porch come morning, the air was cool, threaded with songs of robins balancing on the sagging wire. Sophia sipped coffee from a chipped mug, chin resting in her palm, feeling the house itself waking around her. She heard Annie's bare feet thumping on the stairs, Layla's laughter echoing gently behind. There was no rush, no storm barreling toward them, just slow sun widening over the patched roof, its warmth painting the street gold. As Annie pushed open the screen door, hair flying wild, she flashed her mother a look bright as May. "Mom, Layla found raspberries in the back, the ones Grandpa used to pick. Can I show her the garden today?" Sophia smiled, ticking her head. "Course you can, but show her the fence line. No one needs poison ivy on moving day." Layla appeared, already steadier than the woman who'd crossed their threshold last night. "Sophia, I was thinking, would you mind if I fixed the broken hinge on the back gate? I used to do that kind of thing at my old place." "You'd be saving me another trip to the hardware store," Sophia replied, heart swelling. "Go for it, just shout if you need tools." Annie grabbed Layla's hand, pulling her into the green-tangled yard. "Come on, I bet there's chipmunks too. Grandpa said they run secret tunnels." Sitting back, Sophia watched them go, her daughter no longer unsure and a stranger slowly folding into the fabric of the house. She let the mug warm her hands and for the first time allowed herself to believe steady could last. A voice startled her. Ruth leaned over the porch rail, an impish smirk on her lips. "Paper S calling you a local hero, ready for fame." Sophia laughed, "Only if it comes with a coupon for new gutters." Ruth chuckled, fussing with her cane. "Be careful, houses remember who loved them. You fix what's broken and they keep you on your feet longer than you think." Sophia nodded, quiet gratitude shaping her next words. "I learned from the best. Thanks for teaching me to fight loud and listen slow." They sat in companionable silence as the first tenant in the upstairs window greeted the morning, and Annie yelped at a startled chipmunk by the old garden stones. By noon, Sophia would walk the block with paperwork in hand, keys jangling against her thigh, Annie tugging her side, asking if rain could sound happy now that the house was theirs. And maybe for the first time, Sophia would answer honestly, yes, sometimes it's not the storm that's sad, but the world it washes clean. She closed her eyes, smile threading into something fierce and enduring. Home, at last, was hers to keep and give.